Now, over the last 10 years, teen coach and study skills expert Ray Langan, you know him well, he's been with us on Late Lunch many a time, has delivered seminars, listen to this, to over 30,000 students in 150 Irish secondary schools in study skills, social media safety, leadership and well-being. And he's revolutionised the art of studying and exam preparation in his highly innovative and unique approach to studying with his Raise the Game seminar. And guess what? Yes, we've managed on this day, the day before the exams, to encourage him and inveigle him to join us on Late Lunch. Ray Langan, what an introduction that was.
Day by day, we raise the game, Terry.
Absolutely. It's great to see you again. Thank you for joining us. Look, tomorrow it all kicks off. Here we are, 1:30 on the day before. This time tomorrow, the first exam will be complete. What do you say? Talk to students first of all today. What should they be doing today, Ray?
Well, today is a day to stay cool, to stay calm and to stay in control. So today is actually a really good day because now is the time to actually put the last of your bits and pieces into place and to go into the exam tomorrow with confidence. So I would recommend that students today do something to put their mind at rest. So the last minute preparations, to go over the last few notes and to be kind to yourself, to look after yourself and to make yourself laugh. So tonight I would recommend to any student is to get the last of the stationery together, pack the bag for tomorrow and to watch a good comedy. So put on some Kevin Hart or maybe a bit of Only Fools and Horses. Who knows?
Hey Ray, this is not the night then for cram, staying up late, going into the early hours. Is that a totally wrong approach?
Well, people will be cramming and look, there's no doubt about it that at this stage, you know, that you will, most students will be pushing hard, especially for Leaving Cert students who are pushing for the big points. Junior Cert students, this is their first set of state exams. So yeah, I'm all about cramming, but to make sure that really after 8 o'clock this evening, you're starting to wind down because it's important that tonight that you get a good night's sleep. So it's really about, going into the exams now with good energy.
Now, I know in the introduction there I alluded to this social media pressure that's there as well. Now, Ray, am I being an innocent here saying this to you? Should they just cut it off? You know, this thing of tic-tacking with friends, being on social media, right through the night at times with some of them. Should you close it down this evening and just take a break?
Well, I mean, social media, I think in many respects is a good thing. If you're, not sitting at home alone, panicked or worried, and you are communicating to your friends and, you're sharing in that bit of anxiousness. But tonight after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock is to get the phone off. We know about the blue screens, all of that type of thing. Is it serving you by texting your friend at 12 o'clock tonight saying, is nutrition coming up in biology or what poet is coming up, and then you're going to get panicked at the last minute. So this is where I do think that, from 6 o'clock this evening, put the curfew on, turn off the phone, and as I said, turn on something that's going to make you happy and relaxed.
So a moratorium, Ray knows from this evening. Are you listening, students of Junior and Leaving Cert tomorrow? And if your mum and dad or whoever's looking after you, gives you a little jib on that, understand what they're saying as well. So let's get an early night. Try and sleep as best you can. So tomorrow morning, what should the drill be? Up early? A good breakfast?
All of that. I mean, tomorrow's about preparation. It's about getting up early, making sure your bag is together, and something to make you feel good and make you feel confident. So what I talk about in my seminars is something simple like putting a pint of water beside your bed the night before. First thing in the morning when you wake up is to hydrate. 70% of the body is water, 70% of your brain is water. Yet if you're not getting, at least 2 litres of water into you before you even hit the exam, then you're dehydrated. And when you're dehydrated, you can't think properly. So hydration is the best thing you can do for your cognitive function in order to think better.
So into the exam hall you go, down you go, get there in plenty of time. I think this is common sense stuff. Surely everybody knows this to give themselves, enough time to be there.
Yeah, and especially now when it's raining, and we know that, add 10 minutes. So whatever your time frame is, just add 10 minutes, because the last thing you want to be doing is, sitting outside the school, or you're a mile away, you're caught in a traffic jam, it's 9:25, the exam is starting at 9:30. So get there, half an hour early. I always try and get somewhere 30 minutes before, but to add 10 minutes to that. So give yourself a buffer. And it's the same in the exam. Timing is crucial in exams. So whatever time you think you'll have, give yourself a little bit of buffer for everything. And specifically, as I said, with the bad weather, having a 10-minute buffer is crucial.
Now, people go in and the paper's produced, and suddenly that can produce alarm bells ringing all over the place with a cursory look. But isn't it so important to take your time? I remember this from all these years ago when I did it, Ray, and that ain't today or yesterday, to take your time and really absorb what's in the paper. Set that side of time. You need to do it.
Yeah, and I know what it's. I've had a panic attack before in an exam. I know what that's like. And for a lot of students tomorrow, you're going in nervous. It's the first day. But my program's called Raise the Game, and I get students to think of school, their studies, and an exam like a game. So right now, if you are nervous and you've played rugby or soccer or Gaelic or basketball or camogie or whatever your game is, think of it like a big game. And tomorrow we want to get the first game out of the way, moving. We're into English. It's a good subject to start with. And, this is one where you can get your confidence going. So, when you walk into the exams tomorrow, I recommend you don't ask people, what do you think is coming up? Put on your earphones, listen to some good music, make sure you have some water, as I said, have a good breakfast. And to walk in with confidence. I always tell students to focus on not 9:30 when you're nervous in the exam, but to think about 12 o'clock or 12:30 when the exam is finishing, and to imagine yourself walking out happy in the knowledge that you've done well. Like there's good stress and there's bad stress, okay? So either way, tomorrow you're going to be stressed or anxious or nervous. That's a given. The thing about it is what you do with that stress. So when the nerves kick in, it's to actually have something in your head to say to yourself, oh, it's the nerves, I know what that is, it's just my body's way of protecting me. That's a little bit of nervousness. I'm just going to push that to the side and focus on the exam. And if you get really stressed and really nervous, this is where you have to breathe. So again, regulating the breathing, because what happens is when you really get panicked, what happens is our brain gets pulled into the emotional part of the brain. And that's like, have you ever gone blank? That's like in a big game when you're out in the yard and someone pushes you from behind, you get a fright. So you're pulled into a different part of your brain. When we get the breathing going, that's when you get back into the thinking part of your brain, and that's when you can actually relax and to think properly. So it's all about breathing in the exam.
I've read where you say that during, say, the 3 hours in the exam, if you feel you need a break or a toilet break, take it.
Absolutely. And, literally to have a half time in the exam, so after you've worked through, if it's there's 5 questions on the paper, like the first 5 minutes, you spend your time just getting the breathing going, regulating yourself, preparing, saying, okay, I've got 5 questions or 6 questions, whatever it is, to have a quick skim through the paper, read the paper properly, start off, everyone says, with your best question. So to underline the actual question itself is using words like list, explain, define, to actually ask yourself, what are they asking me here? And then, after you've got your first question out of the way, maybe the second question, after about an hour, maybe take a little break, go to the bathroom for a second, again, just to recalibrate. It might only take 2 minutes, come back in, and now you're into the second part of the exam.
It is like a match with this fella, that's for sure. The game. This is a game. No need to say that if there's 5 questions, let's just say, and you have 3 hours, you should apportion out the time. They're taught this in the schools anyway, I know this. And staying to the end of the game, is that very important?
Oh yeah, a lot of people, and here's the mistake loads of people make. What you start to do is you start to see who's getting up and walking out. And if you are on the fence, and the big thing is you will see, well, there's my mate Barry, or, there's Josephine or whoever it is, and they've left the exam early. I'll go out and follow them. So to forget about your friends, you got to focus on your exam. You got to focus on your future. And, if you think after 3 years at the junior cert, 2 years leaving cert, you stay in an exam for an hour and a half, are you going to give the best representation of yourself in that time? Use the time. Often you'll get that extra 10 or 20 marks just by staying to the end. That last 10 or 15 minutes is crucial. And this is where also in the exam, after you've finished all the questions, to go back and actually review what you've done. And sometimes just getting that extra little definition in. And this is why in the exam script, give yourself a little bit of space after each question.
Yes.
So leave that half a page afterwards so that if you do think of something, you can go back and revisit it. And that extra 5 or 10, minutes at the end can be an extra 5 or 10%, which could be a grade, which could be the place in a college.
And answer all the questions. Don't leave any out. That's another old adage that still rings true.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing where people leave out a question is when you get caught on time. And this is why the night before the exam, actually just go through a past paper and to know how many questions are on the paper. And also, don't forget, you won't have your phone in the exam. A lot of students read the clock off their phone. So now you have to go back to the clock in the exam hall and your watch, and to make sure that you say, okay, I've got 35 minutes for this question, to actually know that if you start at 9:30, you've got until 10:05, and to clinically move on to the next question, because 80% of students get caught for time. And if you're a question short, that could be 20%. Whereas you're better off being clinical with your time and getting through all the questions, and that way then you can get a higher score overall.
It's massive. It really is. Now, when you finish the first day, and hopefully for most people all goes well, and you come out of the exam hall, what's the drill looking towards the next exam? Is there an afternoon exam tomorrow? Have they two, or just the one tomorrow?
No, they do. In junior cert, they've got CSPE.
Okay, leaving cert?
And leaving cert, then you will have home economics.
Okay, so there's two. So let's say you go into the second exam, follow the same drill that you're talking about here. Now, when you finish off for the day, what should you do? Come on, tell us.
Well, it obviously depends on the student. Some students come out, they don't want to talk about it. Other students want to go over every single part of the paper. This is where the moms and dads out there, this is good to have that listening ear. The big thing for any student, I think, is you have to keep it in the day. So after you've come out of the exam, have a chat about it. Obviously, some people are going to be very disappointed. Some people won't want to talk about it. But to just leave it then. Give yourself a little bit of time afterwards to think about it, talk about it, and then you have to move on to the next one. And for some students, if you're gunning for big points and you've been really disappointed with the exam, it's imperative that you try and cut that off and move on to the next exam the next day. So give yourself a buffer of an hour afterwards to have a chat about it, have a think about it, and then you got to switch gear into the next day.
It really is like a contest in that if you have a bad one, you have to put it behind you and you're about to kick off again afterwards. So your analogy rings through with an awful lot of this stuff as well. And it's sometimes difficult, I know, for young people to do that, to put it out of their minds.
And that's why in my programs I focus on process, not points. And it's when you do the process, right? What do I mean by that? Well, Rory McIlroy goes out to play golf, but he's not focused on, getting a 62. He's focused on, hole by hole, shot by shot. I'm a big Liverpool fan. Great weekend last weekend. But again, it's a bit like going through the Champions League. You got to focus on game by game, round by round. And that's the way the Leaving Cert and the Junior Cert is. But for any student, when they approach it like that, one paper at a time, one subject at a time. And one of the things I recommend is actually print off the timetable for the next 2 weeks, put it up on the fridge, put it up on your the wall in your house, and then to mark it off and put an X through it, and then you're on to the next day. So to focus on it day by day.
Ray Langan is with me from Raising the Game. He's a guy who knows everything about exams, how to approach them, how to deal with the pressure, get through them in the best possible fashion. Talking about fashion, Ray, just brings me to it. Clothing and what you wear. How important is that? Because normally we associate exams with blistering heat outside. This year is going to be a little different.
This year could be cold. So it's to make sure the last thing you want to be is in an exam hall and you're freezing. So, it's to make sure that you're wrapped up. Your hands could get cold. This is where the break as well, just to get up and move around. That's what I talk about in my study skill sessions, is active learning. So it's to get up from the desk. So it's whatever you need to do to energize. So the more energy you have, the better. No Red Bull, by the way. That's one of the things. Some students be up now tonight hammering in the caffeine, lots of water, as I said. And I talk about dress for success. Like, I always wear black. It's like an anchor. It's like you walk out and you feel confident. Now, for students, they have to wear their uniforms, presumably. But even today, I was coaching a student, and he's big into his GAA, big into his football. I said, have you any winners' medals? And he said, yeah. And I said, put a winner's medal in your pencil case. And when you do get nervous or anxious, look at the winner's medal, and that'll anchor you back to a time when you were successful and you've had to overcome the odds in order to succeed. So maybe a medal, some people put it could be a little religious symbol or something, whatever your thing is, but something in the pencil case.
It's a brilliant idea.
Just to anchor yourself back. And I know before, when I was doing professional exams, I used to put my business card on the desk just as a way of kind of reminding myself why I was doing the exams. But for lots of students out there at the moment, again, leaving cert brings an awful lot of pressure for points. And I just want to get across to all students out there that there's many ways to skin a cat today. So, as somebody who didn't get the points the first year around, and it was so, difficult at the time, and if you do have a bad week, it happens, but there's many ways now to go through that. So if you feel English didn't go well for you and you needed a high score, then there are alternative ways into the academic system through the different
absolutely, and you're an example of that as well. I am in a way too, and many others that I know. And the one thing to say, yes, there is pressure, and there is a big ask of everybody, and it affects everybody, not just the student, everybody close to them as well. But it's the beginning of your journey in life, in a way.
Well, for an 18 or 17 year old or a 15 or 14 year old, this is their first big set of pressure. And for a young person today, they're thinking, I have to get these points and I have to have my life figured out to pick this course and everything is going to be amazing. It doesn't quite work like that. And, life is a series of obstacles. The leaving cert and the junior cert is, one of your first major hurdles to cross. And this is actually teaching you skills in which to negotiate challenges in life. So, for any young person today under that level of pressure, the thing is, you don't have to have it figured out. If you don't get your first choice, that's okay. Sometimes maybe, something was saying to you, your first choice is not for you. Sometimes your second could be your first choice, only you didn't know that.
Ray, it's interesting you say that, and I think back to my own generation and ilk who went through leaving cert in that way. And I'd say if you went back and looked what they set out on initially or hoped for, very few actually have ended up there in life, and that's the reality.
Yeah, I did commerce in UCD. I trained as an accountant. I worked as an accountant, and today, I'm a teen coach, psychotherapist. Working with lots of teenagers. I didn't set off on this path 25 years ago. I'm very blessed for the work that I do today. But for any young person today, just to I suppose bring it back to them and their exams, that examinations are opportunities to show people how good you are. Don't be focusing on what you don't know. Focus on what you do know. So today I would be sitting down with each subject, my English, and I'd list down my poets, and I'd be focusing on the ones that I do know. So now it's about focusing on what you do have in your toolkit. And a lot of students are all about being perfectionist. So, when they come out of the exam, they think about, I got this wrong and I got that thing wrong and I didn't do that question right. Think about the questions you did right.
Yes.
So focus on what you have as opposed to what you haven't. Focus on what you did well as opposed to what you haven't done well.
What about the mums, dads, the guardians, people, responsible for these young people across the board? What do you say to them today? What should their modus operandi be from tomorrow on and through the exams?
Yeah, and it's about being a good listener. It's about, being supportive, encouraging, creating a warm environment at home, getting the stationery and the few bits and pieces. But also, one of the big things that I talk about in my parents' seminars is helping your sons and daughters be as independent as possible as soon as possible. So not buffering them from the hardship and the realities of, exams toughen you up. Whatever way you want, they build resilience. And sometimes, and my own father gave me the gift of failing a maths exam in my mocks, but I didn't fail the actual exam. But he actually made me go in and face the exam. So exams help us build resilience. They help us build self-control and confidence and all of those things. So for any moms or dads out there, it's lending that gentle, supportive ear to be encouraging and to just make sure that they gently nudge their son and daughter through the next week and a half.
So it's providing that home atmosphere that's conducive to a relaxed presence for everybody during this period of time. Not always easy to nurture.
Look, the next 2 weeks, like for all families, it can be a very stressful and difficult time. And obviously, all moms and dads out there, they just want the best for their son and daughter. So it's, again, listening, popping in and out to the room with a cup of tea and just making sure they get there on time. They know what exam is coming up, but not to be doing it for them. To actually, allow your son and daughter to project manage this thing themselves.
And folks, like anything, very soon it'll be all over. It'll have gone as quickly as it arrived.
And this is where, next thing they're coming in looking for the big holiday in Ibiza or wherever.
They're stressed for you now. Never mind this stuff.
That's the real stress. But it's going to be over very quickly. The next 2 weeks, and then it'll be past. And that's another thing. This moves really fast. So just approaching it day by day.
Ray, thank you so much for joining us on Late Lunch today. It's been great. And on the day that's in and the day before, we say to all students, the best of luck to you all in junior and leaving cert, and do your best. That's all you can do.